Good morning or good afternoon. Welcome wherever you are to the Power BI for Government Community of Practice number 8. Thank you for coming along. We've got a really good session planned for you today. Just a little bit of housekeeping to kick it off. Please do ask your questions. I would just ask if you just want to drop them in the chat, or if you want to raise your hand and I can ask you just to the amount of people here, just so that I can kind of moderate your questions. You are more than welcome to asking questions though, so please do either in the chat or raise your hand and I'll ask you if you want to ask your question. This session is being recorded. I will put it on the YouTube channel, DataTale's YouTube channel. All the other sessions are there, and I will send you an email. I'll drop it in the chat as well if you want to go and look at any of the previous sessions. So I would ask during the session if you just keep yourself on mute. Camera on or off, that's completely your preference. So for those of you here for the first time, what is the Power BI for Government Community of Practice? Essentially, this is a user group. We come together and today we've got 2 user stories. So 2 people who are using Power BI, they're going to share that journey, things they've struggled with, what they're doing, where they're planning to go with the Power BI reports they're building. There's going to be a learning opportunities. So today I'm going to talk about parameters, how you can use parameters and what they are in the world of Power BI. And as always, Power BI is always updating. So we know there's an update once a month. So I'm going to pick my top 3, top 4 updates that you should be aware of in the world of Power BI. Just a reminder for those of you who are on LinkedIn, there is a LinkedIn group that you're more than welcome to join. I put updates in terms of when the next community events are on. There's a lot of job postings. If you have questions, I'd love for you to ask them as well. Let me just drop the link in the chat. So if you're on LinkedIn, please do join the group. And if you do have questions, I'd love to see more questions asked there, but I'm putting up jobs and stuff if there's government jobs that are available as well. For those of you who haven't met, my name is Warren Dean. My company is DataTale. We do Power BI training, Power BI report development, Power BI best practice and architecture and rollout, all those types of things. So if your company needs support in government specified Power BI training or rollout or support, please do let me know. We do have a lot of training courses, so the government training course, an advanced training course, and data storytelling training course. And we've wrapped all this up into kind of a 3-day zero to hero package. And that's just some really good feedback from Moz and her team. So they sat through that. 3 days of Power BI training from, never using it before. Some people have used it right to the end. So if you're interested in, zero to hero package, the whole thing, please do let me know. Now I think this is the same book I gave away last time, but I do have another copy. So we're doing another book giveaway. So if you are interested in Microsoft Power BI Quick Start Guide, this is more for beginners. You've never used Power BI that much and you want to get a good overview of what's in the world of Power BI. Let me grab that link for you and just drop your name in the form. Just drop that in the chat. And I'll announce that a little bit later. So let me drop that in there. So just put your full name in there and I'll randomly pick a winner and then just let me know. Obviously, just for those who are in Australia, if anyone is here not in Australia, because I can't afford the postage. So what are we doing today? Power BI for Government number 8. So we have, so it's Rima from Melton City Council. She's talking about some quality reports in terms of the asset space. Jody is here to assist her as well. She's going to be presenting first. Then we've got Deanna from Stonington City Council. She's working with a company called M Innovation, and they've got some IoT traffic sensors, and she's going to talk through an interesting Power BI report that they're working on there. And then at the end, I'm going to talk about what is the point of parameters in Power BI. It links in with Diana's presentation because that data is connecting to some API data and there was some issues in terms of how much data we could pull in. So I'm going to talk about that, how I worked on that project as well, and then we'll do a demo and I'll create some parameters with you and show you how you can use parameters in Power BI. Now, for once, I've actually been semi-organized and we've got next session already planned and ready to go. So next session, which will be on the 20th of June, we have Christian, who is going to be talking about a whole heap of stuff. Obviously, we've had him before, a very skilled guy. He's talking about ADF, Databricks, Power Automate, Excel scripts, and bringing all of that into a Power BI dashboard. We've got Mercer from the Salvation Army, and she's built out an admin usage metrics report using I think it's the Power BI REST API. But she'll explain that next month. We've got Carter from Montgomery Parks in the USA. He's got a really interesting report on bird monitoring program. So he'll be showcasing that to us. And then obviously I'll do what's the updates in the world of Power BI. Now so you can grab that link already. Let me drop that link. So if you do want to come along to that event, the way it is with the webinars, you just have to register every month, which is a little bit annoying, but oh, sorry, I say people are putting their names in the chat. If you can just drop your names in the form. Let me grab the form again. So if you've already done it, just drop your name in the form for the competition. And if you want to come to next month's session, that is the link there as well. So there's a forms link and the events link is for this one, 20th of June, so end of financial year. Okay, so what's new in the April, the March, and the February Power BI updates? So we have the Gartner Magic Quadrant. If you haven't seen this before, this is Gartner is an independent data research company, and what they do is they independently survey people and users and of the tools. So we can see here in our leaders box the three Power BI is number one. So Microsoft, it's not just Power BI, it's the whole suite. Tableau, which is now owned by Salesforce, and Qlik. So these are the top three tools, and this is of 2023, so the latest research. So you're in a good space being a Power BI user, and especially within the government space, Microsoft, because we're all Microsoft houses, also its pricing makes it very attractive. And so on top of that, I thought I'd have a look in terms of Google Trends. We can see what's happening in terms of, so this is just based on Australian data, comparing Power BI in blue, Tableau in red, Qlik in yellow. And you can see back here in 2018, Tableau and Power BI were kind of on par in terms of, and this is just interest, it's a Google search on interest on those particular terms. But you can see for us, Power BI, really taking over very strong in the Australian market. Now, in terms of Power BI itself, we have this new update referred to as on-object interaction, which, to be honest, I'm still getting used to it. Let me just open this up. I'll show you how it works. So it is on preview, so you do need to turn it on. But sometimes, especially for me when I'm training people, I click on a particular chart and then I have to do a lot of explaining in terms of where the particular settings are. And so this one is about where you can actually, it's all within the chart. So if I click on here, I can change the chart. I can add data into my particular table. So I can add cost of goods sales in the table. So instead of going over to the panes on the side, I can do it in here. I can change the chart. And you can actually, if I had a title, how do I add a title? Let's add a title. Just give that a title A. You can edit things in here as well, so which is good. So instead of finding where it is, I can just double click on here and say chart. So this is all still in preview. They're still providing feedback to it. I'm still finding it a little bit hard to get used to, but it looks like this is the way they're going in terms of providing a lot easier for, I suppose, people who don't use Power BI as often. They can just double click on an area of a chart and then you'll get the settings of that chart. So that's referred to as on-object interaction. It's still in preview at the moment. We have some new buttons available to us. If I jump back over here, so if I go to insert buttons, I have two buttons here, apply all slices and clear all slices. So I'll quickly add both of those buttons, clear. So clear all slices, apply all slices. So here, if I've got my slices on the side, if I select now, I just want to look at France and enterprise. Now this is really good if you've got something that's direct query, and what this is going to do is you can see nothing's updating. Even though I've picked France, all the other countries are there. Not until I click on apply all slices will my changes be applied. And then there's another button here, which is obviously clear all slices, which is handy. And if I click that, it'll clear all the slices. So instead, if you've got a lot of slices and people have to go find that little eraser and click it and click it and click it, you can just add the clear all slices button. So I'll definitely be using that one. You can actually, instead of the style, there is an icon which is a little bit better instead of the text. So you can have this little eraser kind of thing and maybe make it a little bit smaller and put it up there. So they're the two new buttons that we have. Dynamic formatting. So this is quite good. Previously, you weren't able to do this unless you're using something like Tabular Editor. Is, for example, if I have currencies and they're different currencies for different countries, or if I want, a million and a K and 1,000, how do I do all that within Power BI? So that wasn't possible before. If we jump back now, if you've got the April update, you can see here, let me just get rid of these buttons. Okay. If I pick, so you see I've got all millions here. If I just drill this down to make the numbers a little bit smaller, no, let's try Canada. So here you can see I've got my thousands, but when my millions obviously get too big, I can have an M. Now the same is also over here, where I can have my different countries. So these have the dollar sign, the euro, and these have the pound. It's actually quite simple to set up. If you jump into here, and now I have to use this on object. Now I need to find, it's a bit strange, but now it's got this little thing here. So now that's the settings, and up here, which is not that easy to remember. And if I go here to the currency, so it only works on a measure. So if I pick this particular measure, I'll just zoom in here so you can see, that's the measure, and you get this little box on the side where you have a measure and you have a format. So this determines the format and this determines the measure. If I select the format here, it's just a switch. And then the switch is dependent on, for me, it's the country. So if the country is France, so here's my format. For France, I give it the euro. So you can write a switch, and you can write out, countries, or actually I'll show you the other one, which is for the dollar sign, because that might be a bit more useful to you, which is this particular one. So you see you've got the switch there, and so if the selected measure is less than 1,000, make it like that. If it's less than that, and if it's more, put an M on the end, and that's the format. So I'll copy and paste that so you can drop that in the chat and you can have a play with that. So if you're on the April version, very good for financial data. If for some reason you have different currencies, I'm not sure what other use cases. I'm sure there's a few other ones, but I'll definitely be using it in terms of the million sign and the 1,000 sign for all that type of formatting. Pin workspaces. This is kind of useful if you have a lot of workspaces. If I jump into workspace over here, I'll just bring this across. And so if I jump into a workspace, so now I have these little pin options. So on my particular tenant, I don't have a lot of workspaces, but I've worked with some clients where I have 100. So it's nice to be able to pin them up the top here, all the ones that I use often, instead of scrolling and searching them through. So that's the new one. And I think the last one I wanted to show you was improved UI for row level security. So if we bring this in here, so if you want some row level security, if I go in the manage the roles in the modeling ribbon, give that a second, that's not coming up. Ooh, just got the ding of death. All right. That's died. All right. When I do my presentation, I'll see. I can reset this one and get it to work. But I just wanted to show you there's a nice user interface that you can use here. Actually, I can just show it in the picture here. So you now have this option where you can use a user interface. You can have all these different options. Instead of writing DAX code before, the DAX editor is still there, but now it's a nice UI where you can say, if division equals this, a department equals this, that's the row level security group. So that one is out as well. So that's it for the updates. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to hand over to Rima, and Rima is going to talk about asset quality reports. So welcome, Rima. I'll give you the stage.
Thanks a lot. I'll share my screen. Hi everyone, my name is Rima Rekat. I'm the Strategic Asset Management Officer at Melton City Council, and I'm going to be sharing with you about how we're using Power BI to improve the accuracy of the end-of-year financial reports. If you work in local government, you know that April, May and June are particularly busy months as we gear up to the end of financial year, and there's a rush to submit all the handover from capital projects. To give you an idea, capital expenditure for Melton City Council over the last past 3 quarters was a total of 55 million on the various asset groups: transport, stormwater, open space, buildings. That translated to 1,188 transactions. So the way the workflow from the finalization of the project is, once the project is completed and all the requirements for the handover has been satisfied, the project is handed over first to finance. They approve the capital expenditure and all the figures in the report. Then it comes to our unit, which is asset management and GIS combined, to digitize the new assets and to do all the financial transactions. Obviously, a project may have new assets, but also existing assets where we do renewal and upgrades. So we do the digitization, financial transactions, and then from the register, we produce a summary report. Over time, we have established tools to help project managers to hand over. So we have a policy, we have guidelines, we have workflow, and a very important tool is the capital handover form, where we listed all the categories of our assets. And the project manager will simply allocate the funds as relevant, if they spent on roads or buildings. So that gets summarized in the handover form. And then we have a tracking spreadsheet for each asset. The information from the handover form goes into the tracking spreadsheet, which basically has the IDs of each asset and the value allocated to these to each one. All of this gets consolidated into one spreadsheet that has information on all the assets, and then a pivot report that provides a summary to finally end up with a one-page summary that we use. So it is a spreadsheet still, but this is really our checkpoint for what should have gone into the register. And once the transactions are done in the register, I can easily extract reports from the register and check against this paper. So, for example, I've got this Cobblebank project. It has a ledger number, and I, done all the transactions and exported the report out. At the moment, you can see that the ledger number is correct and it's all the same, but that wasn't the case. When I first checked, I realized that I created a mistake, and when I imported, there was, instead of the ledger or the project code being the same across all assets involved with this project, it has copied as a series. So there was multiple, more than 200 numbers. So obviously then I sent this error to finance and was able to correct. Another things that can happen is that I can do all the transactions, extract the report, and let it be mismatch. And so this one has come from finance to us, saying that there's a mismatch with these ledgers between the summary report and what's in what we are extracting. So last year I was introduced to Power BI. I'm not an expert by any means, but I really loved it. Loved using it. I thought it saved time, and it also provided a shared view. If I wanted to have a meeting with finance, we could look at the report together. And it's a more inviting, interesting way to implement data checks. The report I produced, for instance, is a very, very simple, basic report that just has information, doesn't have the buttons and the formulas and anything like what Warren is explaining now, but it's all work in progress. Luckily, in our team, we have Jyoti, who has a lot more experience with Power BI, and he knew I was presenting today and looked at the dashboard and shook his head. So he was able to put something really nice together. And I might ask you, Jyoti, if you can share your screen and perhaps go to the same project here, the Cobblebank.
Sure.
Yeah.
Can you share my screen?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
So obviously, yeah, with Cobblebank, we can just go to the asset. We know how much is spent, what's been. If we go to evaluation comments, we can see what has been checked and balanced in the register and what is still to come. There's some assets are for bulk valuation. We have, for instance, signs, bins, and open space furniture. They are bulk. We export them as a bulk asset with a bulk value, so that's still to come up. So it's a checkpoint that is useful. I can also check what has been upgraded, like how much we spent, total expenditure on renewal, for instance. If you, yep, so we spent 6.34 million, and we can go to the assets where we spent that value. We can check what we spent on new assets. And so if we go to new, this is the amount, and we can see that most of it is on council building. So on. I mean, this is obviously just one step of improvement. We are looking to continue improving on our processes. There's already benefits of, like I've seen much less or hardly any errors in recent reporting, and I can only attribute that to actually using this method to check the data. That's all I've got for now. Thanks, Jyoti. You can probably stop sharing the screen unless someone has a particular question on this. Yeah, so
Yeah.
If anyone has any question, yeah.
Yeah, Sana, I think you've got a question. Did you want to ask your question?
I was just saying, well done. Sounds like you guys did a good thing. Sorry, I thought that was a clap. Sorry.
Thank you.
That's louder than a clap. Well done. Any other question? I mean, I suppose, Rima, so you talked about you've seen less errors, obviously, and then that's just because you've automated this process.
Yes, obviously, with capital projects, it's not like it is not like acquisition from development where we have a script and everything is pushed through to the register seamlessly, because there's formulas that calculate the unit rate, and yeah, so everything is it's easier for that. With capital projects, things can shift and move up until the last minute, where some projects like we spent a bit more than expected. So these there is no, we can automate up to a level. So the automation we have is that we have that tracking spreadsheet. It's always in the same format, and we keep adding to it. And as soon as we add to it, we can refresh the report, and it's there. And then we can bring the data from the register. The register already gives us the data in a nice summary. But if we wait until the financial transactions are being processed, that's already too late to make any changes. So we have to use that window of opportunity when it's we're still in an edit mode in the register. Bring those values and check them against this PowerPoint, this dashboard.
Yeah, excellent.
Yeah.
So Sherry's got a question. How often do you update the data in the database?
Quarterly.
Quarterly, okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Any other questions? All right, no, thank you. Thanks, Rima. Thanks, Jody. Really appreciate that.
Thank you, guys. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Rima.
Okay, next up we have Diana from Stonington talking about some IoT traffic sensors and the report that they've built to work with that. Diana, do you want to take over the screen?
Yes, thanks, Warren. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Diana, and I'm a transport planner from the city of Stonington. And I'm here to talk about IoT traffic sensors in Power BI. So just a bit of background about myself. I've been working in the transport field for about 9 years now, working as a transport planner, a traffic engineer, and modeler here in Australia and overseas. So as part of the transport planning team in Stonington, my work revolves around encouraging people to walk, ride a bike, or catch public transport more often, especially for short local trips. So we do this by providing the necessary infrastructure, such as some bike paths and pedestrian crossings, and also by implementing behavior change initiatives that make it easier for people to choose sustainable transport. So I am also passionate about evidence-based decision making. So I'm very interested about data analysis and modeling. So I've always loved doing my analysis in Excel. But yeah, to be honest, since learning how to use Power BI for the first time in this project that I'm about to show you, yeah, I'm pleasantly surprised by how much Power BI makes a lot of things easier, faster, and better. So I'm interested in transport, data, and technology, and this presentation is a combination of these things. So today I will talk about the traffic sensors that we have in the city of Stonington and how Power BI helps us analyze the data collected from these sensors. So my objective is to share the use of Power BI in the transport field and as part of Stonington's journey in the transformation to a smart city. So towards the end, Warren will talk about the work that he has done in helping us improve this report. So I'll just share my screen. Can you see it now?
Yes.
Yeah, so yeah, in 2021, the City of Stonington started installing traffic sensors in our activity centers, which was led by my colleague Garan from the Smart Cities team. So the first batch of sensors were installed along the Chapel Street Activity Center, which is in the western side of Stonington. So this is one of the busiest corridors in Stonington due to its significant role in retail, in entertainment and tourism, and also one, or if not the most dangerous road for cyclists in Melbourne. So our sensors collect data on the different type of road users, the direction they're traveling in, whether they are on the road or on the footpath, and the volume and speed of road users. So after Chapel Street, we have continued installing more sensors in our activity centers. So here in Glenferrie Road, and the other one is here in Armadale Station Precinct. And the ones in purple are currently underway. And the next stage, which are not shown here, are the traffic sensors that will be on our preferred on-street bike routes. So all the sensors are operating 24/7 since they were installed. So you can just imagine the sheer volume of data being collected by these. So why are we collecting this traffic data? We do this to help us answer various business questions, ranging from the basic ones, such as what is the operational speed, how many vehicles are using the road at a particular day or hour, what is the peak hour in a particular road, and on to more complex questions, such as do we need to install more traffic calming devices, or do we need to change the speed limit? Are the bicycle infrastructure enough to service the number of bike riders along the corridor? Also considering the competing uses of the footpath, such as for pedestrians, for outdoor trading, for bike parking, does the number of pedestrians warrant the widening of the footpath? And if there are cyclists riding along the footpath, do we need to provide protected bike lanes so they will feel safe to ride on the road? And more importantly, how will our future projects impact the number and the type of road users on a particular road? So the answers to these questions inform us in our planning for infrastructure projects. To easily answer these business questions, I started drafting a Power BI report with the help of my colleague Tori, who is our senior data analyst. And Warren also helped us to fine-tune this and connect the report to the data dashboard. So the report has 3 pages, speed, count, and details. The speed and the count have very similar layout, just having a time series at the top showing the total number of road users, and then an average volume or speed by the hour and by the day, and a map showing the location of the sensors. And at the right-hand side are a couple of slicers. With the date, the description or sensor location, the direction of travel, the road user type, and whether you want to look at weekend or weekday data, and whether the road user is on the road or on the footpath. I think I'll probably share the report itself. So this is the dashboard. So you can easily toggle here for the dates, and load. And also here is the different locations of our sensors. Here the different directions the road users are traveling in, and vehicle. So we look at different types of road users, and we are also interested in weekdays or weekends and whether they're on the road or on the footpath. So You can also see that this report has been updated today. So the report is being refreshed every day. And then the other page is, yeah, the details of just what you can see when you drill through. So we regularly receive requests from different teams within the organization to provide answers to some of the business questions I've shown earlier. And before using Power BI, I would normally download everything from our data dashboard called the AlphaX and export the CSV or Excel files. And I would then create my pivot tables and prepare graphs and maps separately. And depending on the time period, the number of sites and the type of road users they are interested in, this manual process would normally take me hours to complete, especially when there are issues with internet connection or Excel takes too long to respond due to the volume of data being processed. So this Power BI report has definitely saved me time as the analysis is now automated and I can easily toggle off different road users, different locations and time period. And it is also a tool for me to quickly check if the sensors are working properly. So if there appears to be an anomaly from a quick look on the report, I can drill through or I would log on to our dashboard to have a deeper look at the data. And now that we have the report, anyone who has access can have a look at it. So you don't need to be an Excel loving person to be able to do the analysis because it's already automated. And yeah, we have just recently finished this report and my team can now use this even while I'm away because I'm actually going to be away for a month starting next week. And it's good to know that if they need data from our sensors, they can just go to Power BI and they wouldn't need someone else to crunch the numbers because the work is already done. So yeah, just the biggest challenge for me when creating the report was how to make it dynamic and that as the sensors collect data every day, 24/7, the report would also refresh every day to reflect the updated data as how it is doing it now. And yeah, at that time, I didn't know how to connect my report to the server. So I just started my report with an Excel file. The other challenge was that as the sensors collect more data every day, the data sets get bigger and bigger and more data points are created. So the report looked messy. So yeah, since my Power BI knowledge is very limited, this is where Warren comes in and helps us to improve the report. And I'll let him talk more about the other challenges that he experienced and how he addressed those. And yeah, I would just like to end by saying that based on my experience working on this project, I know that I have only scratched the surface of what Power BI can actually do. And so I'm excited to learn more from these kinds of sessions. And Warren will also be holding a separate training for our team in Stonington tomorrow. So I'm pretty excited about it. Yeah, that's about it. Thank you for listening.
Yeah, excellent. Thanks, Diana, and thank you, Goran, as well. There's lots of questions in the chat, so I appreciate you going through those questions. Is there any we missed? Because there was quite a few questions here. You know what? I'll quickly wrap them up. So, and if I've missed any questions, so in terms of the sensors and the data being collected, so they're using a product called AlphaX, which is from a supplier called M Innovation. In terms of how we're connecting to the data, we're directly connecting to the AlphaX API, and there's talk here about stacks and different data stacks and things like that. It would be advantageous if we had a stack to store that data on, but because of time restrictions or whatever restrictions, we've directly connected to the API. Now that's caused some issues, and that's what my presentation is on, how we've worked around that. But obviously, ideally, when you're connecting to an API, it's better to have that data stored somewhere and then use Power BI to connect to that data storage. What we've done is we've connected Power BI directly to the API, and there's a limit in Power BI Desktop and how much data it can pull. And that was the issue that I was having that I'll talk about how we can use parameters to overcome that. One of these other questions. Jill's got what sensors are you using for detecting speed? Is that so? These sensors have, and yeah, you can correct me if I'm wrong. There's speed and count. It's all in the same sensor. Yeah. And so in Power BI, they've got different IDs. So for the speed page, I've just filtered on the speed sensors, and the count page, I've just filtered on the count sensors. So the dashboard is updating daily. Is there an opportunity to have it real-time streaming? I'd say there is, but I wouldn't want to be doing it through Power BI. The data would have to be stored somewhere. Again, real-time streaming, is there a business question you're going to answer in real time? If yes, then that is something you should do. If you're not going to be answering questions in real time, you're going to be paying a bit to get that up and running. So I wouldn't really recommend it. Tony's got a question. How would you build a connector between Power BI and the database? So I would just put this into, some cloud database, API into some cloud database, and then Power BI would just connect using what Power BI's got plenty of connectors. So Clara is correct. With a Pro account, you can update 8 times a day. Can AlphaX provide aggregated data for the dashboard? So great question. That was our first try. We tried to get AlphaX to provide aggregated data for the dashboard, which it did. It was still too much data to connect directly to the API. So originally we're getting row by row data, it's a lot. And then we're getting aggregated data. It's still too much. And so I'm going to show you how we did this workaround to get it to work. Okay, I think we've answered all the questions. If I've missed any, feel free to drop them in while I do my part of the presentation.
I just want to add a data stack quality comment, is that the workaround is not a long-term thing. So we will be putting it in the data stack. That's very raw. Yeah.
Which is, definitely what you want to do. Yeah, thanks, Karen. So let me share my screen here. So as this workaround to get this connected directly to the API, and not that there's an issue of connecting to an API, it's just the amount of data that is coming through. If I go into Power Query, what I've done is I've built what's called a parameter. So a parameter here, if you haven't used it in Power BI before, you have a button here that is called Manage Parameters. So in Manage Parameters, there's a few options here. You can create a parameter, and we'll do that in my demo, but I'll just edit the existing one. I can just set a number here. So here I have 10. I can say 20. And that's all it is. It's like a variable. You just hold that particular value. And now when I go into the data here, you can see I have 20 records of data. If we go into the advanced editor for the code, what I'm doing is I'm calling number of rows. So in here, I do a keep first rows, and instead of that being a text 20, I call my parameter called number of rows. So the value for this parameter number of rows is 20 at the moment. You can see that's 20. And now if I go in here and I say 10, and I go back to that table, it's going to load it again. It's connecting to the API, and you can see now there's only 10. So this workaround allowed me as a Power BI developer to just bring in 10 records of data for all the sensors, build out the Power BI report. Once the Power BI report was built in desktop, it only had 10 rows per sensor, which is not very helpful. So what we do is when we bring it into the Power BI service, if I go to the workspace here, you can see here, so this is just my version of that particular report. I can go on the data set, and when I schedule here, so in terms of, we talked about, someone mentioned the Pro licenses, all the refreshing is scheduled in here, but here I have my parameter. So you can see now I've just put a very large number. So Power BI Desktop has an issue with bringing in a certain amount of data from an API. Power BI Service doesn't have the same issue. So what I was able to do is here in the parameters, it's just grabbing everything, where in Power BI Desktop, I just limited it to give me the top 10 rows. I'll build out my Power BI report. I publish it to the service. Once it's in the service, I change the parameters, and then it goes, when it refreshes, it grabs everything. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to demo this in terms of how two ways you can use parameter in my demo file. So open up my demo file here. What we'll do here is I'll go into Power Query. And so I just have some accident data. This is the data that I use in all my training courses, so Victorian accidents. So I don't destroy that. I'm just going to duplicate this one so I have another copy of it. So this particular data, if I have a look here, it's coming from, that's my path. It's coming from accident_1.csv file. So that's the name of the file. I want to change this to go to accident2. Now I could manually write in here and delete it and put accident2. But if this CSV file is going to change and there's different versions, maybe you're version controlling or something like that, I just want to create a parameter and this will call the parameter. So if I go manage parameters, new parameter, this one I will call it, actually I'll call it file name. And it will be a text and the file name will be accident_2 dot, I think it was a CSV file. So that value is stored in this parameter. And you can see it there. Now, when I go to accident, what we can do is when I go to the source step up in here, so here's my code accident1_. What I can do is get rid of this CSV file so that it ends there. And then I can use the and, sorry, let me zoom in so you can see that. Oh, I can't. All right, I'll zoom in at the end. And then I will call my parameter. So you can see here, this is the parameter that I've created called file name. Oops. File name. Just return that. So once that's in there, I just need the and signed and it appends it on. And now I can go into here. Now there is no accident 3. So if I go accident 3 and go back to my report, it should fall over. So you can see the path says couldn't find the path, C uses blah, 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 accident 3. So now I can use this parameter instead of manually going into my code. And obviously if I had different queries all pointing to the same CSV file, I only have to change it once in the parameter. So it's meant for reusing things. So I want to reuse changing the file name. So let's do another example where now for this one, I just want to see the top 10. So I will go keep rows. I'm going to keep my top rows and I just want to keep the top 10 rows here. So you can see now I have 10. And if I have a look in the code, I've done a filter. I want to see the top 10 rows. Let's create another parameter, new parameter. This one I'm going to call, I'll just call it count. And I'll just leave it as any, but let's make the value 20. So you can see this parameter, it's just a number. Now when I go over here to my code, instead of this 10 in here, I refer to the parameter name, which is count. Now this 10 should change to 20 as soon as I click and return on that, and you can see now I get 20. Now we could also, instead of hard coding it, we can use a query. So you can see in here my suggested values. Now I could hard code the values in here. So I could say 1 to 20, or I can call a query. I've got a query here, which is actually a list of numbers. So here I can reference the query list of numbers, give the current value 1. click on OK. So you can see now I get 1. Now, how do we use this in the world of Power BI? When I click close and apply, it's all going to load. Here, transform data, and this is where we can edit the parameters. So this is good, if you want to do testing, I don't want to bring in a million rows of data into Power BI Desktop. You can see here now I have a list. So how many rows of data do I want to bring in? Do I want to change the file name? Or from Power BI Desktop, I can modify my parameters. Also in Power BI Service, I can modify the parameters once I've published it up. So parameters are, there's a text or there's a number that I want to reuse in my code, kind of like a variable, and I can manage it in the front end of Power BI or the Power BI Service. So in terms of this use case, the API was pulling too much data and I couldn't build anything with it. So I had to limit it so that I could build out the report, publish it to the service, and then change the parameter so it brings in the rest of the data. So, any questions about that? Tim, can parameter values be passed via part of a URL of the report service? Can parameter values be passed via and as part of a URL? I would say so if I understand the question correctly. It's just a text string. So you could put it within a URL if, the last part of the URL is changing. So yeah, if you wanted a web connector, for example, yes, you could. So just with the and sign, you can add it in and at the start and at the end if it's mid. Fernando says, can I call a stored procedure from Power BI and use the parameters to append as the SP variables? Do you want to elaborate a bit on that question? I'm not sure. What's a SP variable? Fernando? Oh, stored procedure. Thanks. Can I call stored procedure from Power BI? You can. Now, you can correct me if I'm wrong. I made this list, right? So this particular list of numbers I pulled as the results of a query. So if you ever want to make a list of numbers, so if you had maybe a list of stored procedure names or something within a database, to do that, all I did was, so let's say day of the week, I've grabbed that column and I add it as a new query. And then all I want to do is remove the duplicates. So there's all the days of the week. So obviously, if the data is somewhere and you can call it into Power BI, you can then make that a list. So a list is just a one-column table, and then that list can be the attributes within the parameter. I'm happy to take that question offline if that doesn't make sense. But yeah, if the data labels or whatever you want to use in your parameter is in a stored procedure, it's in a table, you can call it out and then make it into a list. Any other questions? No? Okay, excellent. So that's me. Oh, and I've done the draw in the background. I did a random generator in Excel, and Bianca Slark. Congratulations. Please shoot me an email, send me your address, and I'll post that off to you this week. So congratulations on that. Again, get in touch if you do need support in terms of Power BI, training, rollout, development, all that type of stuff. But thanks so much for attending. If you have any questions, hang on the line. Happy to answer any other questions, but thanks for a session. Thank you for our presenters, some really interesting presentations. We've got some more in June, so I'd love to see you back. But thanks everyone, hope you enjoyed the session, and I'll see you next time.